My SIL said I didn't deserve the family trip, so I used my admin access, canceled her luxury stay, and enjoyed the presidential suite instead. Sometimes karma doesn't wait patiently in the background. Sometimes it shows up early, armed with admin access and a smoking gun of receipts. Today in the R Lounge, it's all about those who weaponize cruelty, who feed off control, and who never see it coming when the ones they tried to break finally stand up, smile, and light the match. Up first, what happens when one woman decided that the real vacation perk wasn't the tropical drinks or ocean views? It was serving her sister-in-law a heaping slice of well-deserved karma. Sister-in-law said I didn't deserve to go on the family trip, so I canceled her luxury stay and let her watch from home. My husband, 32 male, and I, 30 female, have been married for 5 years. Things have been good between us. This relationship with his family, however, has been a different story, particularly with his sister. A few months ago, my in-laws proposed a luxe trip to a tropical destination. They offered to cover the accommodation as an early anniversary gift to us. I was genuinely touched by their generosity and immediately contributed $5,000 from my personal savings toward excursions and activities to show my appreciation. I wanted to make sure everyone had an amazing time. When the planning started, my sister-in-law, 28 female, appointed herself as the unofficial trip coordinator. She created a family group chat and started making executive decisions about activities, dining reservations, and excursion schedules. I noticed right away that she would forget to include me in certain conversations and ask for my input. Whenever I'd suggest something, she'd either ignore it completely or find some reason why it wouldn't work. At first, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was just excited about the trip. But then my husband showed me messages from a separate chat that she'd created for just the siblings to discuss trip details. In those messages, she was actively suggesting activities that would exclude me or scheduling things during times when she knew I'd be busy with other plans. When I confronted her via text about being left out of discussions, her response was dismissive. "Oh, sorry. Total oversight. I'll make sure to include you next time." But the pattern continued. When my in-laws hosted a pre-trip dinner at their home, my sister-in-law spent the entire evening making passive-aggressive comments about everything. From my outfit, "Isn't that a bit casual for a family dinner?" to my contributions to the conversation. At one point, I went to the kitchen to refill my drink and overheard her telling her boyfriend that I was trying too hard to fit in with the family and that it was kind of pathetic. A week later, my sister-in-law posted photos on social media about the upcoming family vacation, with pictures of everyone except me. Her caption read, "Can't wait for quality time with the real family." As the trip got closer, we had to make final payments for the excursions and activities. I discovered that my sister-in-law hadn't contributed her share of $1,200, despite confirming multiple times that she would. Not wanting to lose the reservations, I covered her portion temporarily. When I messaged her about it, she read the text but never responded. During a family video call to finalize trip details, my sister-in-law interrupted me every time I spoke. She would roll her eyes whenever I made a suggestion and talk over me as if I wasn't even there. After the call, she sent my husband a text that he later showed me. "Why is she even coming? It's a family trip." My husband defended me in his response, but still didn't directly confront her about her behavior. Around this time, my sister-in-law's boyfriend broke up with her unexpectedly. She immediately called my husband crying, somehow blaming me for the breakup. "Your wife probably said something to him," she sobbed. My in-laws suggested that we all be extra nice to her during the trip because she was going through a difficult time. I bit my tongue but was seething inside. Why was her comfort always prioritized over basic respect for me? When we received the trip itinerary from the travel agent, I noticed something odd. My sister-in-law had somehow upgraded herself to the presidential suite using my in-law's credit card, while our room had been downgraded to a standard room to compensate for the budget difference. My in-laws were completely unaware of this switch. I was about to bring this up to them when I had dinner with my husband's cousin, who let it slip that my sister-in-law had been telling family members that I was using my husband for his family's money. Apparently, she'd been spreading rumors for months that I was controlling and isolating my husband from his family. My husband's cousin only mentioned it because she thought I already knew, and was surprised by how calm I was being about it. This was the final straw for my husband, who finally acknowledged there was a serious problem. The next day, My sister-in-law accidentally added me to a group chat where she was discussing me with some family members. The message that appeared on my screen said, "She doesn't deserve to go. She's not blood family and never will be." Another message stated, "I've arranged for her to be excluded from the family photos." When my husband saw the messages, he immediately called his sister to confront her. Her response was a half-hearted apology text, "Sorry if you misunderstood my intentions." This was quickly followed by a message to the family group, "Some people are just too sensitive." My in-laws suggested we move past this for the sake of the trip, which made it clear they weren't going to hold her accountable. Since I had helped book everything, I decided to check all the reservation details. That's when I realized I still had admin access to all bookings through the travel portal. I logged into the travel portal and canceled her presidential suite reservation. Then, using my personal credit card, I booked that same suite for my husband and me instead. I left her with no reservation at all. As a final touch, I set up a vacation response email that would automatically send her photos of us enjoying the suite she tried to steal. The reaction came fast. My sister-in-law called my husband, upset about her canceled hotel reservation. He put the call on speaker so I could hear. She was practically shouting, asking what happened to her suite, saying the hotel told her it was canceled. I calmly took the phone and explained that since she didn't think I deserved to go on the family trip, I figured she'd rather stay home, promising to send lots of pictures from the presidential suite. She got louder, insisting I couldn't do this and that her parents paid for her room. I pointed out that they actually covered a standard room and she'd upgraded herself using their credit card without telling them. I told her that I booked the presidential suite with my own money, so it was no longer available. She hung up and immediately called my in-laws, who then called us. They were initially upset but quickly quieted down when I forwarded all the screenshots of my sister-in-law's messages, the evidence of her unauthorized upgrade, and her social media posts targeting me. My father-in-law confessed that he and his wife were unaware that their daughter had upgraded her room using their credit card. He asked, however, why I couldn't have simply downgraded her back to a standard room instead of canceling her reservation entirely. "I could have," I said. "But after months of her treating me like I don't belong in this family, I decided she needed to experience what exclusion feels like. Besides, I've already paid for the presidential suite myself, and it's non-refundable." On the day of departure, we arrived at the airport, ready for our tropical getaway. To our surprise, my sister-in-law showed up anyway, apparently thinking she could fix things at the last minute or guilt her parents into getting her another room. When she wasn't allowed through security without a valid booking, she caused such a scene that airport security had to escort her away. We boarded our flight and headed to paradise without her. The 2 weeks in the tropical paradise were absolute bliss. The presidential suite was everything the brochure had promised and more: spacious rooms, a private balcony overlooking the ocean, and personalized service that made us feel like royalty. We enjoyed all the planned activities with the rest of the family, and I made sure to take plenty of photos. Each day, I posted pictures to the family group chat that my sister-in-law was still part of. Pictures of breakfast on our private balcony, couples massages with the ocean view, sunset cruises, and all the special treats that came with the presidential suite package. So, was I the a-hole for canceling my sister-in-law's luxury stay and letting her watch from home after she said I didn't deserve to go on the family trip? Update. It's been about a week since I posted my story, and I want to thank everyone for the overwhelming support. I didn't expect this to blow up the way that it did, but I appreciate all the comments and messages. A lot has happened since we returned from our trip, so I thought I'd provide an update. My original post somehow made its way through our family and friend circles like wildfire. I didn't intend for that to happen, but once someone shared it, there was no stopping it. My sister-in-law was forced to turn off comments on all her social media accounts due to the backlash she received. Apparently, many people recognized her behavior patterns from my description and called her out publicly. Instead of reflecting on her actions, she's now telling people that I hacked the reservation system to cancel her booking. She's painting herself as the victim, claiming I committed some kind of cybercrime to ruin her vacation. The travel portal was literally logged in on my laptop because I helped book everything in the first place. I had the admin access because I was the one who set up the group booking. There was no hacking involved. The most surprising call came from my husband's grandmother. She's in her 80s and has always been very close to my sister-in-law. Apparently, My sister-in-law has been crying to her about being unfairly excluded from family events and painted herself as the victim of a cruel conspiracy. When Grandma called us, I put her on speaker so my husband could hear her too. She started by saying she was concerned about the family rift and suggested I might have overreacted. I asked if she'd heard the full story, and when she admitted she'd only heard my sister-in-law's version, I offered to play a recording. You see, during one of our planning calls for the trip, I had recorded the conversation. One-party consent is legal where we live because I needed to keep track of all the details being discussed. That recording happened to capture my sister-in-law making several nasty comments about me when she thought I had temporarily left the call. When I played the audio for Grandma, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "I had no idea she was like this," she finally said, her voice shaking. "She's always been so sweet to me. I never would have believed it if I hadn't heard it myself." The fallout continued when my sister-in-law lost her temper at a family birthday party that I didn't even attend. My husband went without me because I had prior commitments. According to him, she showed up uninvited and immediately started complaining about how I had turned everyone against her. When no one took her side, she became increasingly agitated. The breaking point came when someone mentioned how much they had enjoyed the trip. My sister-in-law completely lost it, screaming that they were all betraying her by siding with an outsider. She knocked over a table that held several valuable family heirlooms, breaking a crystal vase that had belonged to my husband's great-grandmother and a porcelain figurine that had been in the family for generations. My father-in-law, who is normally the most even-tempered person I know, asked her to leave. When she refused, 2 of my husband's uncles escorted her out. It was the first time my in-laws had publicly acknowledged that her behavior was a serious problem, not just a personality quirk to be tolerated. Now she's facing real consequences for perhaps the first time in her adult life. According to my mother-in-law, she's been given notice to vacate her apartment, which my in-laws are paying for, within 30 days. They've offered to help her find a more affordable place and will pay the security deposit for a new apartment, but only if she gets a job and starts therapy. As for the presidential suite photos, they've become something of a family joke. My mother-in-law recently suggested that we should frame one for the family room. She wanted to make you feel excluded. Congratulations to her. She's now experienced premium exclusion, all expenses paid courtesy of her own arrogance. The fact that she tried to claim you hacked the system when you literally had admin access just adds the perfect seasoning of delusion. Your sister-in-law absolutely earned every ounce of that humiliation. She spent months acting like the mean girl from a bad teen movie only to end up grounded by her own stupidity. She called you an outsider. Now she's outside the airport screaming at security while you're sipping champagne in a robe that probably cost more than her emotional maturity. Share your crazy sister-in-law stories with us in the comments. Up next, turning It Takes a Village into It Takes a Village idiot. Am I the a-hole for refusing to play along with my husband and my best friend? I'm writing this on behalf of a friend, her story, my point of view, so that she can get some honest feedback and support. Also, throwaway account and all names changed because this is so messy and I don't want anything to come back on my friend. Background: my friend Sophie, early 40s female, and her husband Noah, early 40s male, have been married for 21 years. They have 3 teenage boys and are such a fun family. My husband, late 30s male, and I, late 30s female, moved a street over from them about 5 years ago, and we quickly became fast friends. They have practically become family since our relatives live many states away. Their kids act like big brothers to our 3 littles, and we do stuff as families a lot. Sunday dinners, babysitting, holidays, etc. Suffice it to say, we adore Sophie and her family. Shortly after we moved in, Sophie introduced me to her best friend, Courtney, early 40s female. Courtney and her husband, Leo, early 40s male, have a big family with a couple kids near my own kids' ages. Courtney and Leo were so warm and welcoming to us, too, and our 3 families quickly became thick as thieves. It was so nice having a village to help us when we were so far from our own families. I grew up super close to cousins and aunts and uncles, and it was so fun to see my own kids building the same kind of relationships with these friends, adopted family members. On to the story. About 2 years ago, Courtney told Sophie and me that she was pregnant. We were over the moon for her and Leo, but genuinely surprised because Leo had a vasectomy 3 years earlier. She was a bit nervous because with her last pregnancy, she got incredibly sick and almost had to be hospitalized. Sophie and I told her we'd do anything we could to help. We checked in on her a ton, and Sophie often picked up things at the store for her, brought a meal, helped with kids, etc. Sophie expected no fanfare or recognition. After all, that's what best friends do. Fast forward 9 months, and Courtney gave birth to the cutest baby boy. We all fell instantly in love. And this baby was basically never put down and always cuddled and loved on. It was basically a constant fight to see who got to hold him. Sophie and Noah were no exceptions. Noah is a kid's best friend. He loved to play and be silly with them and was a really devoted dad. He was often seen holding the new baby, walking with him and soothing him when he cried. Courtney mentioned to both Sophie and me how much she loved that Noah was so comfortable holding the baby, and how she wished more men were willing to step in and help in general. Sophie and I both agreed, and the three of us shared stories of how our husbands grew into good dads and etc. Time went on, our families all stayed close, and the new baby turned 1 and started toddling around and becoming his own little person. I started noticing that Sophie and Courtney seemed to be really busy. Not suspiciously so, just mom life busy. Our twice-a-month big dinners trickled down to 1 and then none. I assumed that Courtney and Sophie were still doing lots together, and while I missed hanging with them a lot, I understood that sometimes you just need one-on-one time with a friend. It was also around this time that I noticed Sophie seeming a bit withdrawn and more sad. When I approached her and asked if she was okay, she said she was struggling with stuff but couldn't say more. I gave her a big hug, told her I was always there for her, and didn't push the issue. Everyone else seemed happy and healthy, and life kept going. More time passed. Now we're into 2024. Sophie and I would see each other at church briefly, but we didn't really do much else. I tried to make sure I told her how much I loved her and how amazing she was whenever I saw her, but I didn't want to put any pressure on her to share things if she wasn't ready. I didn't see much of Courtney either, but again just chalked it up to busy family life and school shenanigans and whatnot. Whenever I did see her, Courtney was happy and bubbly like she always was, and the new baby still had everyone wrapped around his finger. This past summer, Sophie asked me to take care of their pets while their family went to visit family across the country for a month. I happily agreed and told her to have fun. She mentioned she and her boys were heading out first, and Noah would follow in a couple weeks when he could get off work. A few days before Noah left, he came to give me the keys to the house and thanked me for taking care of their pets. He said that Sophie would be back in about a week and a half, and he and the boys would make a boys' road trip and come home after another week. I was expecting to see my friend again and hoped that the vacation helped her to feel happier. When Sophie got home, she texted and asked if I wanted to get lunch and catch up. I leapt at the chance, picked up some food, and headed over. We each gave each other a big hug and spent a couple minutes talking about my family's summer and vacations. I asked her about her trip, and that's when the tone of the conversation took a 180-degree turn. Voice shaking, Sophie told me that she and Noah were getting a divorce, and that he had cheated on her with Courtney. The new baby was Noah's son, not Leo's. And then Sophie started to cry. I was legitimately in shock. I actually asked her out loud, "Are you being serious?" Not my finest moment, but it shows you how utterly gobsmacked I was. I quickly hugged her, and she started to tell me everything. She had found out shortly after the new baby's first birthday and had been bullied into keeping the secret for a year and a half. Back in early 2024, Noah and Courtney had been spotted by a friend of Sophie S. at the grocery store one fateful Monday, kissing and being all cuddly and holding the new baby. The friend immediately went to Sophie and told her, and when Sophie called Noah to confront him about it, he lied. He said he hadn't seen Courtney at the store and that he didn't know what Sophie was talking about. When Sophie pushed him, saying she had been shown pictures and videos, the friend came with receipts. He came clean and, without any warning, announced that the new baby was his son and that he and Courtney had had an affair. Noah told Sophie he was coming home from work to talk to her, and she hung up on him. She immediately called Courtney and asked her if she had been with Noah at the grocery store on Monday. Courtney lied, saying she hadn't seen him. Sophie pressed harder, telling her that she and Noah had been seen. Courtney kept denying, and Sophie hung up on her too. That night, Leo came over to see Sophie and told her how important it was that she forgive Noah and Courtney and how everyone needed to keep things as normal as possible for the new baby's sake. This was the start of a year-and-a-half-long gaslighting campaign against Sophie. She was constantly told that she was making things harder than necessary and that she didn't care about the new baby. When she tried to set boundaries about seeing Courtney in public, she was told by Courtney, Noah, and Leo that they didn't want visitation, and that the only way Noah would be allowed to see the new baby was if their families remained friends. She was told that this was the best way to do things for the new baby, and why was she making things so hard when she would express how uncomfortable it was doing things together as families? In retaliation, Courtney told Sophie that Noah could watch the new baby when Sophie wasn't around. Sophie wouldn't be allowed around the new baby unless she agreed to let things go back to normal, i.e. Sunday dinners, joint family outings, etc. They told her that they wanted Sophie's boys to have a relationship with the new baby, but they weren't allowed to say that the new baby was their brother to anyone. For a year and a half, the three of them made Sophie feel like crap, like she was actually a bad person for having a problem with how they wanted things to go. Sophie would beg Noah to work on their marriage, telling him she still loved him and wanted to make things work. Noah would tell her that he would only stay married for their kids and that he wanted them to essentially be roommates. He still wanted to go see the new baby and Courtney whenever he wanted. And he bristled when the family therapist he and Sophie were seeing told him he needed to cut ties with Courtney to make things work with his current family. He constantly belittled and berated Sophie, telling her she was manipulative and abusive and that he was done putting up with that in his life. He stopped paying attention to his older three boys, constantly leaving scheduled time with them to go watch the new baby. Y'all, I sat with Sophie for hours as she told me everything. We went through all the emotions, and when she asked multiple times, mind you, if this was really her fault, I told her she needed to share her story so she could get some non-biased feedback. I also immediately told her she was absolutely not at fault and that anyone who said otherwise was clinically insane. But that's just my opinion. There is so much more to this story, but it's already so long. If there's interest and if she's okay with it, I will post an update later. So, is my friend the a-hole because she refuses to keep playing along with her husband and best friend? Update. First of all, I love this community. All of your comments have been amazing and have made Sophie feel so supported. She's been reading them and told me that y'all have helped her clearly see that she has been abused, and she is grateful for all the kind words, wishes, thoughts, prayers, juju, etc. I can't tell you what that means to me. I got to actually physically see the effect you had on her, and it brought so much joy to my heart. Thank you all. Sophie is starting to get her shine back, and you had a part in that. To answer some common questions and concerns, yes, Sophie is filing for divorce and custody. As I'm sure many of you know, there are only so many details that can be shared during this process. So, I'm sorry I can't give you more, but she has a good lawyer who is enraged on her behalf and is doing everything she legally can to get out of the situation as quickly as possible. She's becoming the queen of documentation and has all her ducks in a row as much as she can. Sophie's kids know about as much as appropriate for them to know, as do Leo and Courtney's kids. My heart breaks for all of them because they're all stuck in a mess that had nothing to do with them. Sophie and her boys are all in therapy and are all doing okay. If the other three are, they absolutely should be. I don't know about it. No one knows why Leo is going along with any of this. Sophie and I have talked about this for hours and hours, and we cannot come up with a reason. Lots of you pointed out that there may be a kink thing going on or have wondered about his sexuality, etc. From what I know of him, Leo is a straight man, and that's pretty much it. So, yeah, I don't actually have an answer for that one. Sorry. Now for the update. Sophie is divorced. Edit to add, she met with his lawyers. It probably isn't finalized, but I got excited. Sorry, she is okay with the outcome she got. Not thrilled, but relieved that she got many things that she wanted and that this family is on its way to being officially over. She's going to a different church congregation now, so she doesn't have to see all of them every Sunday. She is healing, and she can see light at the end of the tunnel. I'm soaking up all the time I have left with her before she moves. I told my hubby that once she goes, we go. I don't want to be in the same city, county, or state as the others. As much as I love the area we live in, I'm done. Noah, Leo, and Courtney are still whatever they are. Noah is over at their house multiple times a week watching the new baby. It's been enraging watching him choose the new baby over his boys. But what can you do? What his family therapist said would happen did. He refused to legally set up visitation stuff for the new baby because he didn't want to do that to the new baby, so now he has to deal with it and his older sons. Apparently, being Uncle Noah is more important to him than being a dad. Yes, that's how they're explaining this to the new baby. Thus far, he's really little, so explaining is a loose term. Most of Leo and Courtney's kids know the truth. I don't know how they feel about things. My heart honestly breaks over the new baby and all the mess he is inheriting. I still see Noah, Leo, and Courtney every week at church. We don't interact much at all, which is good for me because I don't think I'd do well in prison. The word is spreading slowly through the community about what happened. And as angry as I am, I do hope that people can be kind to them while still not being okay with what they did. My kids have started to notice the gap between our family and Noah, Courtney, and Leo, and are starting to ask questions. I've just told them that our job is to be kind, and that's all we can do for now. Yes, hubby has quoted me back to me when I go on raging vent sessions, but he does it in tongue-in-cheek for the most part. And that's it, friends. Sophie wanted me to tell all of you, thank you for the kindness and support. She's on the road to healing, and we're going to let karma do its thing and leave this mess behind. Y'all are the best. Thank you for helping my friend. Courtney really said best friends share everything, and took it way too literally. The girl looked at Sophie's life, saw a loving husband, and thought, you know what would make this friendship stronger? The only thing she didn't steal was Sophie's last name. But give her time. And Noah, Noah's a special kind of stupid. He ruined his family, blew up 2 marriages, and somehow still walks around acting like he's the victim. Man's got the empathy of a brick and the self-awareness of roadkill. Let's not forget Leo, the human doormat. What's worse, the friend who stole the husband who played house next door, or the husband of the cheater who just smiled through it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for joining us today in the R Lounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon, and please put your chair back where you found it.